For many Excel users, writing formulas is one of the most common things they do. Now, many times formulas are straightforward, they're simple, easy to use. They do start with a concept, though, that might surprise you a little bit. We want to calculate profits on this worksheet. Worksheet's called Formulas. It's in the workbook 03, Creating Formulas and Functions. The total here is going to be 20. We're going to be subtracting these two cells. But we don't type 120 or 100. All formulas in Excel begin with the equal sign. And although we can occasionally and want to use external numbers, most of the time we use addresses. We want to say, in effect, whatever is in B2, from that we want to take away whatever is in B3. So we write the formula, and this is one of three major ways to write a formula. We type in the location of the first cell, B2, minus B3. Enter or tab, we have our answer. Another way to type this, so I delete this entry, equal, then use the arrow keys to go to the cell you're interested. Writing a formula this way could be better, but the cells have to be somewhat nearby, otherwise it would take a long time to get there. Minus, we press the up arrow, the B3 pops in, enter. And a third way, might involve two hands, but equal, this time we'll click on cell B2. Minus, we click on cell B3, enter. Same result in all three cases. No matter how you write the formula, though, you want to learn to keep an eye on what we call the formula bar. It's at the top of the screen. In a certain sense, this cell doesn't really contain a 20, it contains a formula. Click on the cell above it. Yes, that does contain the value 100. We keep an eye on the formula bar, in much the same way we keep our eye on the rearview mirror in a car. Look there frequently. Now, we want a total in cell H2. If all we knew about formulas is what we previously saw, then we would do something like this. Equal, type or click on B2, plus C2, plus D2, and on and on and on. That is not the best way. Imagine trying to do that for 12 months too. I'll simply press escape. Built into Excel are over 450 functions. There's a ton of them. On the Formulas tab in the ribbon, you can track them down this way. A lot of times you're not sure what you need. Here's some math and trig functions. Some more out here, some statistical functions. Just a lot of them all over the place. The most common function in Excel for most people is probably sum. And like a formula, this begins with equal as well, sum. You don't have to capitalize it. Left parenthesis, you wouldn't know to do that instinctively, but that's what we do. And then we highlight the cells in question, either dragging left to right, B2 to G2, or right to left. Makes no difference. Click and drag across. That notation means all the cells from B2 through G2. And we press enter, and we have an answer. And in cell I2, we need to calculate an average. And of course, that's the total divided by 6. We need to add these up, but we've already done the addition right here. So the formula here is simply equal this cell H2, and the division symbol is the slash that looks like this, not the one that goes in the opposite direction, divided by 6, and enter. And we'll adjust that format perhaps later. Now, when we have formulas in place like this, and although we're not finished with this particular sheet, if I change this number 120, I'll change it to 125. Keep your eye on the 20 down here. It will change. We saw the formula, and these totals and averages to the right will change as well. And you can begin to see how powerful these formulas are and how we can make adjustments at different times. Also, if I go back to cell B3, I'll make a change here. This is going to change the profits. It won't change anything to the right since we don't have anything over there just yet, but sometimes we will see negatives, and that's what happens. The formula is reacting all the time. So in this movie, we've seen different techniques using mouse and keyboard for creating simple formulas. It's a task that's very important as you work with Excel. Many times in Excel, when you see a formula, you also want a similar formula in adjacent cells, either across a row or down a column. And we're looking at a worksheet here called Copy Formulas. It's in the workbook 03, Creating Formulas and Functions. Here's a formula in cell B4. I click on it, you can see in the formula bar, or I can double click it here, you can see it larger. We want that same kind of a formula here. We certainly don't want the exact formula because we get the answer 20. When you copy a formula in Excel, the important concept is you're copying a formula relatively. Now, I'm going to double click this again so we can see it larger. This formula refers to content in column B. If we drag it one column into the right, the column references will get adjusted to be column C. And then going to the right, D, E, F, G. When you copy formulas, they get adjusted relatively. Otherwise, you'd simply be repeating the exact same formula. And of course, the payoff is here, We don't want to type a formula here, then here, then here. And what if we were doing this for 12 months? That'd be kind of ridiculous, really time consuming. And the way we copy a formula is simply by dragging an entry from that lower right-hand corner. It's called the fill handle. So as I drag to the right from the fill handle into June, right away you can probably see those values are correct. What's this one right here? You can see it in the formula bar, or I'll double click, you can see it larger. So one by one, we have correct formulas. And if we had 12 months, it would be all the more impressive. And similarly, in column H here, here's a formula. What is it doing? It's adding up the 6 cells to its left. Do we want to do that here? Yes, we do. And here, yes, we do. So just as in the examples over here, we were copying, you could say, the relationship. What is this formula over here? What did it do? It subtracts the 2 cells above it. We copied to the right. What does this one do? Same thing, same thing, same thing, and so on. Same general idea here, but now we're moving down a column. So I can simply drag that lower right-hand corner, and we have correct answers there. What does this one say? You can see it in the formula bar, or as I double-click, see it better. And similarly, in column I, the function here for average is the cell to its left divided by 6. We want to do that 2 more times. We'll drag that lower right-hand corner downward. So many, many times when you see a formula, you're likely to want to copy it, as we've seen here, down a column or across a row. And this technique of copying a formula by dragging the fill handle is absolutely essential when you work with formulas and list the way we're saying them here. We started off seeing only 3 formulas in this worksheet, and we created the other formulas simply by dragging the fill handle. In this list of numbers that we're seeing here on the screen, just at a glance, it looks like a bunch of numbers. These are numbers. All the rest are formulas. So as you work with Excel, there will be many times when you need to copy formulas, like we've seen in the examples in this movie. Whenever you're trying to add up numbers in a column or a row, or coming up with an average of those numbers, you can rely on 2 of Excel's most commonly used functions, sum and average. Now, there's a menu button, there's a keystroke shortcut. They're going to help in your use of these functions. We're looking at this worksheet called Sum Average. It's in the workbook 03, Creating Formulas and Functions. We want a total in cell G2. We want to add up the data. You might have seen in an earlier movie, we could start typing equal SUM, left parenthesis, highlight the data, and so on. Nothing wrong with that, but there's a better way. There's a faster way. 2 faster ways. On the Home tab, in the editing group on the right side, you'll see a button called Auto Sum. If you click this button, Excel looks upward for data, then it looks leftward. In this case, no numbers appear above it, but certainly leftward. We click this button. Excel shows us what it's about to do. We're going to press enter. After using that for a few times, you become a little bit more confident with it. And you can speed it up a little bit. You can double click Auto Sum. Click, click. There it is. There's our total. And what has it done for us? It's put in the sum function. If I double click in the cell here as a reminder, you can also see this in the formula bar. We see what it's done. Similarly, in cell B9, we could use that same button. And by the way, that button also appears on the Formulas tab in the ribbon. As I click the Formulas tab, it's on the left side. So it's in 2 locations. It's also got a keystroke shortcut. I'm going to press Alt equal. Looks good. I'll press enter. Same general idea, same approach. Another thought here too, as I delete this entry, if you highlight cells ahead of time, you can either press the Auto Sum button once or Alt equal once. I'll press Alt equal this time. Total on the bottom. Could have pressed the Auto Sum button. Sometimes you'll run into a slight conflict, not a major one here. What happens here if you press Auto Sum or Alt equal? Here's Auto Sum. Excel looks upward. But I wanted to add up the data to the left. What do? I'll simply highlight those cells instead. Excel sees that. Enter. All set. If we want totals on the right side, in rows 12 through 15, we can highlight these cells. And we'll take one of 2 actions. We'll either click the Auto Sum button or we'll press Alt equal. And in either case, that's it. You don't have to do anything else. That's it. I'll delete that. Similarly, across the bottom, we could do the same thing. And a surprise, perhaps, if we highlight the data this way, in other words, include the empty cells on the right and on the bottom, we can click either Auto Sum button or Alt equal. Either way, we get our totals on the right. So for example, this cell right here is doing what? It's adding up these cells. Same thing down here, so on. And down here in row 16, we're adding up this way. Cell in the corner is doing this. So that's easy. And here's another action. I'm going to press Control Z. If you wanted an average on the right-hand side, AutoSum has a little drop arrow right here. And what do we see? Average. Now we're going to be getting an average on the right side and on the bottom. And there are decimals there. Eventually, we would change the format to produce a more standard look. Now, I'm going to make a statement here that might sound a little strange. Never type =SUM. Well, why not? It's certainly not wrong to type it, and we could fill in other data here. But when you press Alt=, Excel does that for you. Now, it might make a bad guess. I don't want to add that up, but I can point to other cells that I do want to add. Maybe I want to add up these cells over here. Point is, you can redirect it. And why type =SUM when Excel does it for you by pressing Alt=? So these are valuable tools as you work with formulas in Excel. There's no question that the sum function and the average function are widely used by most Excel users. The AutoSum button, its keystroke shortcut, Alt=, and occasionally use that drop arrow next to Alt=. All these make tabulating sums and averages, and occasionally other functions too, really fast and efficient. In the previous movie, you saw how to use the sum and average functions. On this worksheet called Functions, we're about to use a function that you might not need if you're just getting started with Excel, but eventually you are likely to use what is the third most frequently used function in Excel. It's called VLOOKUP. It has a companion called HLOOKUP, and as of late August of 2019, a new function being introduced called XLOOKUP actually will replace VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. And the whole idea behind a function like this is to allow you to pull together related information. Now, sometimes when you're doing this, you're working with different worksheets at the same time. In the simple example we're going to show you here, we've got a list in column G of some ID numbers, and we need to associate them with an employee name. And over in columns A through D, we've got a huge list, thousands of rows potentially. And rather than sorting the data and jumping back and forth to try and find these IDs, let's actually use this XLOOKUP function, the new XLOOKUP function. And by the way, that function does, in addition to combining the capabilities of these two functions, it introduces some new efficiencies and also gets over some of the limitations of the other two functions. =XLOOKUP. I'm about to type this in cell H2. If you've never worked with functions beyond sum and average, you're a little bit surprised perhaps as you type in a function name, you put in a left parenthesis, you will be seeing some indications as to what is required. And optionally within brackets, some additional features too. This doesn't tell you everything you need to know. But most of the time when you use XLOOKUP, you'll be saying, I've got a value, for example, the one in G2. We can click this or type in G2. We then put in a comma. Now we see highlighted lookup array. Where are we looking? We are looking in column C. And I'll simply, with the left mouse button, click column C. Comma. And what are we looking for? We see the pop-up return array. We're looking to find the related information over in column A. And that's all we need to do in this particular example. I'll press enter. You don't have to put in a right parenthesis when you're using a function by itself. I'll press enter, and we have an answer. Now we're not verifying that just yet, but we do want to copy this formula down the column. We'll point to the lower right-hand corner, that fill handle, hold down the left mouse button, and drag down here. Now possibly one of those IDs is visible on the screen over here. In fact, the last one is, here's David Diaz right here, 30573. We happen to see that information right here in row 8. And there he is with 30573. So that's working there. And also Juan Bishop here up in row 4. So we see at least two examples where it's working. So we're assuming they're all working. Let me also, as I click on the cell up here in H2, and we can see it in the formula bar. I'll also double click momentarily so you can see it in more detail. We're looking up G2, trying to find it in column C. When we find it, we jump into column A and return that amount. We could not have done this with VLOOKUP because it cannot look leftward. That's what we're doing here. So this overcomes that limitation. And over in column K, something similar. This time we're looking ID, and almost the same idea, except this time we'll be looking rightward. The lookup function, XLOOKUP, we're looking at cell J2, comma. Once again, we're looking in column C, comma. And when we find that match, we want to go into column D to find the compensation amount. And enter. And here too, like before, we'll drag from that lower right-hand corner, click and drag with the left mouse button downward. And one of those numbers might exist over there. This is 111,283. I think we have that over, yes, we do, over in row 9. That's for Adam Frost. And his idea is 26621. That matches up with what we see over here in column J. Now, many times, and this is well beyond the scope of this course, you're likely to encounter VLOOKUP in a much more sophisticated situation. And here too, XLOOKUP will fill the bill. Two large lists, one in column N through R, another one in column U through Z. Many times when you're trying to reconcile information in lists or pull them together, turn them into one list, you'd be looking at VLOOKUP and now an XLOOKUP to pull together the information from these different lists. A powerful function in Excel, XLOOKUP.